Hey guys, I'm Theo. This is the group project for the EVR 1001 class. I'm here with Guy Fortune. He's the Executive Director of the Historic Virginia Beach Key. We're going to be talking today just about kind of the history of the park, some of the environmental issues or challenges that the park may face, and maybe talk a little bit about Ultra Music Festival, how that impacts the park as well. So Guy, tell me a little bit about the wildlife, maybe plants, animals that live here in the park.
It's an exciting spot. We've got over 100 species of birds and really countless sea creatures. And this is a nice explanation of kind of a coastal dune. And part of what we did here was reestablish a natural environment. And we're a turtle nesting beach. So turtle nesting season starts May 1 and runs through Halloween, October 31st. We have dozens of nests along the shore. There are even American crocodiles here on this property. So what people don't understand, very different than gators.
Right.
They're very docile, very calm, and they're federally protected. So we can't move them. There's how do you live and coexist with crocodiles.
And in regards to the turtles, when that happens, when they start laying their eggs and everything like that, is there measures that the park takes to protect them, or maybe keep people from going onto the beach or the sand areas? How does that work?
Yes, we do. They dig their nest 2 to 3 feet down, so we patrol the beaches and make sure people don't put umbrellas into the sand.
Right.
No special events can have bright light and go into nighttime. So our event schedule is augmented by the turtle nesting season. So all the late night events do not happen. It's all daytime.
Got you. Now, as far as invasive species, is that an issue here at the park? Has there been any problem with invasive species, whether it's plants, animals, anything like that?
Plants, it's hard work. We've got Australian pine and Brazilian pepper that's all over South Florida.
Right.
People even believe that it's part of the native plant landscape because they were brought in almost like Melaleuca trees in the Everglades.
Right.
They had a purpose in the beginning, and then later, because they're not native, they're actually to a detriment. And so when you talk about invasive species, that really means they grow far faster than native plants. They blot out everything.
Right.
And Brazilian pepper does that.
It just takes over. It doesn't.
Takes over.
There's nothing to compete with it as far as natural plant species to the park and stuff
Absolutely.
like that. Right.
Yeah,
What about
is it.
animals? Is there any kind of invasive species? Pythons? You're dealing with that
Yeah,
kind of
we
problem?
aren't dealing with pythons, but we're dealing with raccoons. Okay.
Raccoons, yeah.
Raccoons are everywhere. People think they're cute. They want to feed them.
Right.
We do not do that. There are companies that remove them, and humanely, raccoons are protected.
Right.
A lot of people don't realize that, but raccoons are protected. So they capture them in cages and take them off the property. We have to do like 30 at a time.
Wow.
A lot.
What about iguanas? An iguana problem?
We do have iguanas. We had a big freeze several years ago
Okay.
that really shut them down, but they're still scampering around the property.
Cloudy with the chance of falling iguanas.
That's what happens.
So Guy, tell me a little bit about the beach, like maybe some things like sea level rise, things that you guys are dealing with here at the park as it pertains to the beach and stuff like that.
Sure, we're in a unique spot, the historic Virginia Key Beach. We are, and many people may not know this, but sea level rise is happening at different speeds around the globe. And Miami is one of the locations that has higher levels than some other places. So one of the measurement buoys is literally right here on the island. And we've got neighbors who are the University of Miami and NOAA measures your hurricane. They're your hurricane chasers in oceanographic studies. And so we have lost dozens of feet of shoreline. And sea level rise is very interesting because really what happens is water has a harder time going back into the ground after the rain. So when you have a rain event, it's not all about flooding all the time. It's about draining very slow. And us being right here, the water table is less than 2.5 feet down. So when you think of it that way and think that we're living on a sponge, when the sponge is wet, the water can't go anywhere.
Right.
And then on the ocean, a lot of erosion. So you lose shoreline. Even though the level goes back to normal, when it's high, it's higher. And then we lose a whole lot, and then it goes back. And it's just taking out the beach fast. And you'll see some examples of that in the back. This is an area where, in some of our work with Fairchild Tropical Gardens, they come out and introduce native plants, different species, and see how they react. Different types of seeds. And if you just look here on the ground, and we'll stay back, but those PVC rings with those codes on them, that's them tracking specifically which plants they put down. They'll come back, and I know they're coming back in July, and they'll see what kind of progress we have. It just helps them with their research, what grows best in coastal areas.
As we were walking, I saw that you had wooden beams in the ocean. What purpose do they serve?
Those are called groins, and they're erosion control devices. So what that means, they go out into the water and sand builds up on one side, kind of like rock jetties you see on other beaches. It's to capture sand. That was the old form of saving shorelines. It was through sand collecting at jetties. The new version of that is coastal dunes. The plant's roots hold the sand. So that's an old version that was installed here by the Army Corps of Engineers over a dozen years ago. really for historical reference. Today they don't even work at all. You might have noticed how the water was back behind them and they're just floating out in space. Those used to be 15, 20 feet into the sand so that sand could build up. That's how much sea level rise is taken away from the shore. mini train. Historically, there was a train on the property when we first came. There was no track. All we had were the plans of where it used to be. So we built this. As old as it looks, it just shows you that Mother Nature will take everything back. This is probably only a dozen years old. We're fixing some of the curves. We just got a new train last year during COVID, so it still isn't something we ride, but once we fix the track again, we'll run the train for kids and adults on weekends.
Great. And
So very cool.
what about this structure right here? Like, how am I interested?
This is disc golf, and disc golf is, literally known around the world. There are professionals, rankings, and everything. Something I didn't know anything about until about 10 years ago. Guy came to me as we were opening up the park, and he said, "Let us put in a golf system." I said, "Fine." We put in 9 holes. At the time, I didn't know anything about it and didn't realize that every other day people are visiting the beach playing disc golf.
Wow.
Either in the mornings or late afternoons. I had no idea that it would get that kind of use, but it's great. It's a lot of fun to play.
Alright guys, so we ran into Charlie. As you can see, there's crocodiles in the area. Crikey mate, it's crocodiles in the area. And if you look over there, you'll see Charlie, the crocodile. So what we have here is an example of a natural species. It's the cocoa plum. It is actually edible. Kind of tastes like a watered down lychee. Very good. What do you think? Good?
Too bad.
Yeah,
Delicious?
actually, mine's not watery. Mine's pretty good.
Nutritious?
I don't know
Feels
about the
nutritious.
nutrition, but
Usually this stuff is really nutritious.
Again, I mean, you can see where the water comes. Okay?
That's where the water level
That's where, yeah, when it gets heavy, storm, whatnot, it just keeps going back.
see the line
Yeah.
on the water.
Just taking it out.
Where it comes up to. And then there's an example of an Australian pine, which is an invasive species.
Invasive. So this whole shoreline was Australian pines, like what you see in the background.
Right.
Those giant tall ones. We literally had to. It was a fun time using chainsaws ourselves when no one was here. Park was closed. And later, they cut them down and they bring out little robots that are stump grinders. They sit on top of the stumps and grind them down. Fun job.
Complete eradication.
I know, fun job.
So guys, obviously the Ultra Music Festival is happening this weekend. In the past, it was actually here on Virginia Key. Tell me a little bit about how maybe that might have negatively or positively impacted the park, and maybe it's things like pollution. So I can imagine it was a lot more pollution and stuff like that with all the people there.
That was a unique time. It did come to this park for 1 year, just before COVID. And what was strange about it, we were a section, it was in two parts. The main stage was at the Marine Stadium area. We held a different smaller side of it, and when I say smaller, 20,000 people a day,
Yeah.
compared to the full 60,000 that come to it. But what was unique is that Ultra was, frankly, so well funded, so over the top staffed. With their leave no trace policies, they had the resources to actually make it happen. I was very worried that we would have people wandering into sensitive areas and destroying plants that we've nurtured for a dozen years. They had the ability to fence everything off.
Okay.
Shoreline also, so there weren't stragglers hitting into partygoers walking into the ocean. All contained. So strangely, as being the biggest event we ever had, per number of people per day, they were able to clean it up overnight so that the place looked spotless for the next day's event.
Wow.
So that rarely ever happens.
Yeah, no.
What it did do was put a heavy footprint on our back lawn. They built a huge main stage activation section in back that was almost like an aircraft, really hot air balloon hangar. It
Wow.
was enormous, took the entire 5-acre back lawn. And so that, of course, grass destroyed. They came out and paid for fertilizers, grass where they needed to, repair of our main parking lot, certain areas that needed to be re-asphalted. And so it came off really one of the cleanest
Wow.
events, especially in its size. The noise, yes, not something that you want to have happen in sensitive areas.
Right.
The city monitored them with sound meters and all of that. So they had a lot of hoops they had to jump through, and basically jumped through them all. It was pretty successful.
That's great. I mean, normally with something in an event like that, you would assume the worst, obviously. When I think about
preparing
it,
for it.
right, I feel like it would have been kind of detrimental to the park, but it actually sounds like Ultra did right by the park and really was a step ahead.
They did as much for the situation they were given, which was to come out to an island and put on an event they've done for over 20 years at one location. But they bounced back nicely. We recovered well, and it did add to the revenues of the park so that we could do other things.
Excellent. Well, Guy, thank you so much for taking your time today.
Thank
Really
you,
appreciate
Leo.
it. Have a good one.
No,
Take care.
my pleasure.
Thank you.